Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have been fascinated by, and not necessarily in a good way, by the evolution of the defense in this case. Mr. Chairman, initially it started when Lois Lerner discloses information in a fashion most calculated to be ignored, with a planted question at some boring conference. And then the second iteration of this defense was blaming two rogue agents in the Ohio field office. And Mr. Chairman, make no mistake, Jay Carney advanced and furthered that narrative, and he did so intentionally. You know, Mr. Carney's willingness to say, I don't know, is exceeded perhaps only by his willingness to acknowledge that he appreciates the question. But he didn't say, I don't know. He advanced the narrative that two rogue agents were responsible for this insidious discriminatory practice. And then we had colleagues that said this matter was closed. Months ago, Mr. Chairman, the matter was closed. And then the new iteration of the defense is, well, at least the White House isn't directly involved, as if that's the new standard for propriety in this town, that at least the White House directly didn't know about it. So that's our defense. And then the defense, Mr. Chairman, morphed into this, the most novel of all defenses, that the IRS is too poorly managed to be capable of concocting a scheme this sophisticated. That was the defense, that my client's too dumb to have committed this crime. And then, Mr. Chairman, we moved to the most recent defense, which is that, no, we didn't just improperly target conservative groups, we improperly targeted all groups. So while we may be guilty of improper conduct, we're not guilty of discrimination, because we did it against people at both ends of the political spectrum. So that's our defense. And now to see the Inspector General attacked. Mr. Chairman, there was an axiom in court that if you had the facts, pound the facts. If you had the law, pound the law. If you didn't have either one, pound the judge. And what's been said about Mr. George is reprehensible, and I can't wait till he has an opportunity to defend himself. But let me tell you what else is reprehensible, Mr. Chairman. Lois Lerner sat where those two witnesses sit today, several weeks ago. And these two witnesses put on a uniform and fought and defended this country and the Constitution so she could hide behind the Constitution, invoke her Fifth Amendment right, but only after she blamed them.
Mr. Cummings.
I'll be very brief. I too want to thank both of you for your service. I want to thank you for being here. Ms. Hoffaker, I got to tell you, one of the most painful things that I've heard since I've been here is when you said that there was some threats or whatever to you and your family. That is totally unfortunate. If there's anything that we can do, and I know the chairman joins me in that, and all our members, we want to make sure that we do what we can to help you. And again, to you, Mr. Holm, thank you very much. And your testimony has been quite helpful.
$14 million of taxpayer money has already been spent on this investigation.
Called out the Supreme Court regarding the Citizens United decision. That same year, 2010, the president numerous times talked about Tea Party groups as shadowy groups who would hurt our democracy. That same year, Senator Schumer says we're going to get to the bottom of this, encourages the IRS to investigate. Senator Baucus, that same year, asked the IRS to investigate C4 applications and C4 groups. Senator Durbin asked the IRS to investigate Crossroads GPS. And then, in that same year, 2010, 2 weeks before the election, October 19th, at Duke University, Lois Lerner gives a speech. And she says this: the Supreme Court dealt a huge blow in the Citizens United decision. And everyone is up in arms because they don't like it. They want the IRS to fix the problem. The IRS law is not set up to fix the problem. C4s can do straight political activity. So everybody is screaming at us right now. Who's everybody? Everybody is not everybody. Everybody is the president and Democrat senators who asked her to do something. Fix it now before the election. Lois Lerner says, I can't do anything right now. She couldn't fix it before the 2010 midterm election, but what she could do is start a project to deal with it in the future, and that's exactly what she did. That same fall, she sent an email, again, just weeks before the midterm election. Lerner tells her colleagues, let's do a C4 project next year. But she also says we need to be cautious so it isn't a per se political project. In fact, Mr. the chairman put this email up in our last hearing. Per se political project means that's code for it is a political project. We just have to make it look like it's not a political project. Then in early 2011, Lois Lerner orders the multi-tiered review of C4 applications. Multi-tiered review, you know what that is? That's code for we're going to delay, we're going to harass, we're never going to approve these people, we're going to make it difficult. That's part of the C4 project. And then make no mistake, she put Washington in charge. This email is also one that the chairman put up at our last meeting, where Lois Lerner said this in February of 2011. Tea Party matter, very dangerous. Cincy should probably not have these cases. So this narrative about Cincinnati line agents in Cincinnati doing this is completely false. She ordered them not to have these cases. And then what happened? Lois Lerner got caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Tea Party groups came to us and said, we're being harassed. We asked for the Inspector General to do an investigation. He did the audit, and then before he can release the audit, unprecedented, before he releases the audit, Lois Lerner, in a speech in front of the Bar Association here in this town, with a plaintive question from a friend, reveals that, yes, targeting was taking place.
To follow up on the information that other terms like, quote, progressive and occupy, unquote, appeared in various sections of the BOLO list, we conducted additional analyses to provide you, members of Congress, with the data that we have due to the interest in this issue. However, we do not have full audit findings on the use of these other criteria. With respect to the 298 cases that the IRS selected for political review, as of the end of May 2012, 3 have the word progressive in the organization's name. Another 4 were used, quote, progress, unquote. None of the 298 cases selected by the IRS as of May 2012 used the name Occupy.
Again, you promised to produce the documents, you did not. You promised to be forthcoming and candid, you are not. In our first meeting, my subcommittee chairman, who will also be making an opening statement, Mr. Jordan, irritated you because you felt he questioned your integrity. I defended you at that time, and I quite frankly gave you a bit of an apology that he meant no harm, it was just his style. Tonight, quite frankly, I wish I could take that back, and I wish I could say what I'll say to you tonight. You believe you earned trust before you came here, and it was yours to lose. I believe you needed to earn our trust, and you failed at that task. Either way, the American people do not believe the IRS is dealing fairly with them in this investigation. With that, I recognize the ranking member for his opening statement.
I want to get right down to the heart of the accusation Republicans have been making for the past week. It is interesting, Commissioner, that you've been accused of false testimony or misleading testimony, and been accused, actually, if it's false testimony, of committing a crime. What are we really saying? And what are the Republicans here saying? They're saying that Lois Lerner intentionally destroyed her emails, and that IRS officials helped her cover it up. Chairman Issa has been leading the charge. Here are some of the accusations he's made. June 13th, Chairman Issa suggested that this was, quote, a nefarious conduct that went much higher than Lois Lerner, end of quote. On June 18th, he said, quote, the emails of a prominent official
don't just disappear without a trace unless that was the intention, end of quote. On June 19th, he said, Ms. Lerner, quote, made the decision not to have this drive recovered, end of quote. And just this morning he said, quote, the Justice Department, the IRS, and the White House are interested in her succeeding in hiding what she's hiding, end of quote. Chairman Ice has made these accusations on national television without first obtaining a briefing from IT officials at the IRS who could have explained what really happened. And he made them before hearing from the IRS commissioner. Mr. Koshinen testified last Friday before the Ways and Means Committee. And now that we have the facts, they tell a vastly different story. Truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. Our committee has obtained no evidence to support Chairman Ice's claim that Lois Lerner intentionally destroyed her emails. To the contrary, we have now obtained contemporaneous evidence from 2011 showing the exact opposite. That this was a technological problem with her computer. Truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. In Mr. Koshinen's testimony last Friday, he walked through email after email from 2011 showing that Ms. Lerner sought help from IT staff at the IRS and that they went to great lengths to recover her data. But at the end of that process, they could not do so. Mr. Koshinen also testified last week that the IRS took extraordinary steps, the extraordinary step of sending Ms. Lerner's hard drive to experts in the forensic lab at the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. But even they could not recover her data. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. On August 5th, 2011, Ms. Lerner received an email with the bad news. And it said this, and I quote, unfortunately, the news is not good. The sectors on the hard drive were bad, which made your data unrecoverable. I'm very sorry. Everyone involved tried their best, end of quote. So if anyone wants the actual evidence of what happened in this case, now we have it. I asked unanimous consent that all of these emails from July 19th, July 20th, August 1st, and August 5th be entered into the official hearing record.
Without objection, any Lois Lerner emails that any member wants to put in the record be placed in the record in the next 7 days.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. These emails are all from 2011, well before any congressional investigation began. And they show that Ms. Lerner's computer crashed before she was informed that IRS employees in Cincinnati were using inappropriate search terms according to the Inspector General. I didn't say that, the Inspector General. Now, we can certainly take issue with why the IRS did not have backup tapes for this data. As Mr. Koshinen testified last week, IRS policy in 2011 was to recycle backup tapes after 6 months to save money. He also explained that this policy was changed in 2013 to save all backup tapes. The fact is that there are long-standing problems with electronic record keeping at federal agencies. The Bush administration lost millions of emails relating to the U.S. Attorney firings, the outing of covert CIA agent Valerie Plame, and other investigations. Millions. In 2007, the White House spokeswoman, Donna Perino, admitted that they lost 5 million emails. 5 million. As she said at the time, quote, we screwed up and we're trying to fix it, end of quote. There's been some progress since then, but I've always believed we need to do more. I've always believed that we could do better. That is why nearly a year and a half ago, I introduced the Electronic Message Preservation Act. My bill would have required federal agencies to preserve emails records electronically. Although this committee voted on a bipartisan basis to approve my legislation, it is language since then. And the House Republicans have declined to bring it to the floor for a vote. I believe our committee's work should be a responsible effort to obtain the facts and a responsible effort to find the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It should not be an unseemly race against other Republicans to hold the first hearing in front of the cameras. It should not be a ludicrous competition for some hyperbolic sound bites based on the least amount of evidence. In this case, Republicans have been trying desperately and unsuccessfully for more than a year to link this scandal to the White House. Rather than continuing on this path, I sincerely hope that we will turn to constructive legislation with concrete solutions to help federal agencies run more effectively and efficiently. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I might note for the record that in today's briefing, a briefing we asked for a week ago and were denied repeatedly, in today's briefing, after we sent interrogatory questions to the commission, they said they would answer orally, which they did not. However, in today's briefing, when asked, can you assure us that Lois Lerner did not intentionally crash her hard drive, they could not verify that she did or didn't. Can you assure us that there was nothing nefarious in the loss? There was nothing nefarious in the loss by Lois Lerner of her emails, and your CIO could not answer definitively. So we still have a lot of facts to do.
Maybe,
of course.
Just before today's hearing, both the Democratic and the Republican staffs, as you said, had a briefing from the IRS Deputy Chief Information Officer, a career IT professional. While he was not involved in the original 2011 examination of Ms. Lerner's hard drive, he has reviewed documents surrounding the hard drive crash and the IT office's response to it. He was asked, do you have any reason to believe that Ms. Lerner intentionally crashed her hard drive? And he responded, and this is a quote, I have no reason to believe it and haven't seen anything that would say that she did that, no, end of quote. He also told the committee, and I quote, Ms. Lerner was insistent in trying to recover whatever documents she could. He further stated that I have no indication that there was anything nefarious about the loss of Ms. Lerner's emails, and quote, and when asked whether he was, quote, aware of anyone at the IRS intentionally destroying documents that are relevant to a congressional investigation, he said, quote, absolutely not, end of quote. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
To the committee, all members are to be sworn. Would you please rise to take the oath? And raise your right hand. A little higher. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please be seated. Let the record reflect the witness answered in the affirmative.
Emails we have will be provided. I did not say I would provide you emails that disappeared. If you have a magical way for me to do that, I'd be happy to know about it. I said I would provide all the emails. We are providing all the emails. The fact that 3 years ago, some of them, not all of them, but some of them were not available, I never said I would provide you emails we didn't have. And in fact, we are going to provide you 24,000 emails from the time.
My time has expired and I've lost my patience with you. We now go to the ranking member.
I want you to talk about resources. Can you were starting to say something about resources.
We have a wide range.
How does that affect what you do?
What it affects is that we have a wide range of responsibilities. The IT budget has been cut by over $100 million over the last 4 years. This year's budget for 2014 required $300 million just for the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. The Congress provided us zero. That meant that $300 million to implement a statutory mandate had to be taken from other IT programs. That's been our challenge for the last 3 or 4 years.
Now, Commissioner Custon, last week, many members of Congress, including our own chairman, suggested that Lois Lerner intentionally crashed her computer to destroy emails. But last Friday, you testified about the facts. You provided Congress with evidence from 2011, contemporaneous, by the way, emails, showing exactly the opposite, that this was a technological problem. Since some members of Congress are still pushing this accusation, I want to walk through these emails. Let me ask staff to put up the slides. On July 19, 2011, Lois Lerner emailed Associate Chief Information Officer at the IRS for help in recovering her hard drive, and it says, I quote, "I'm taking advantage of your offer to try and recapture my lost personal files. My computer skills are pretty basic, so nothing fancy. But there were some documents in the files that are irreplaceable. Whatever you can do to help is greatly appreciated," end of quote. Commissioner Caution, is that right? Is that accurate?
That's an email that has been found and been produced, yes.
Next slide. Later that day, that IT employee sought help from the field director of the customer support division, and he wrote, quote, "If she can't fix it, nobody can." Is that a document that a part of a document that you produced?
Yes.
Next slide. The next day, the field director emailed Ms. Lerner and said, I quote, "I checked with the technician and he still has your drive. He wanted to exhaust all avenues to recover the data before sending it to the hard drive cemetery. Unfortunately, after receiving assistance from several highly skilled technicians, including HP experts, he still cannot recover the data." Is that a part of a document that you supplied to
Yes.
our committee? Next slide. On August 1st, 2011, the IT field director wrote again to Ms. Lerner and informed her that, quote, "As a last resort, we sent your hard drive to CI's forensic lab to attempt data recovery," end of quote. Now, Mr. Caution, CI stands for Criminal Investigation Division at IRS. And what do they do in the forensic lab in that division?
They're an expert in that lab, taking hard drives and computers that have been seized by criminals, tax evaders, and others, and reconstituting emails wherever necessary.
Now, is this a step typical when an employee computer crashes? You normally do that?
No, it's extraordinary that the IRS would send the hard drive to CI for their help.
And why did you do that?
Because Ms. Lerner, I am advised, insisted that all possible efforts be made.
Now, despite all of these efforts, the field director finally emailed Ms. Lerner with the results. Next slide, please. And I quote, "Unfortunately, the news is not good. These sectors on the hard drive were bad, which made your data unrecoverable. I'm very sorry. Everyone involved tried their best," end of quote. So the technical experts concluded 3 years ago that the sectors on her hard drive were bad. Is that accurate?
That's what the email says.
Now, these emails are concrete evidence of what really happened back in 2011.
Of those individuals who should be held responsible. But unfortunately, that is not what the chairman has allowed us to focus on in any of the hearings that we've had dealing with this matter. In fact, he's used this process to politicize the process and to not focus on the proper oversight or government reform function of the committee. But perhaps this should not be a surprise, because during an interview on August 19, 2010, before Chairman Issa became committee, he was asked what he planned to do with the ability to issue subpoenas, and his response was, and I quote, "Cabinet officers, assistant secretaries, directors, I will be able to take on everybody that the president hires and relies upon." Well, he has certainly made good on that promise. I yield back my time.
Have you identified any evidence since you have been commissioned that IRS employees before you came or now were part of a conspiracy to intentionally target the president's political enemies?
No, I have done no investigations. I have read the IG's report that said inappropriate criteria were used to identify organizations for review, and the IG had 9 recommendations, and we have accepted all of those recommendations. I think it's important for the public to be confident that whoever they are, they're going to be treated fairly by the IRS, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, belong to organizations of one kind or another, wherever they show up, wherever they speak, they should understand they'll be treated fairly. If there's an issue, it's because something in their tax return. If somebody else had that issue, they get the same response from the IRS. I think it's critical that the public have that confidence, and we're doing everything we can to restore that confidence.
Well, 41 individuals have testified, just as you have, that there's no evidence of the first conspiracy. Now that we're on to the second conspiracy, and so did the IG. Do you recall that the IG also testified, and I will quote, the Inspector General, when asked by the Ways and Means Committee, was there any evidence of political motivation from the White House? He said, we did not have, did you have any evidence? We did not, sir. So I just want to say that your strong reputation, your character should hold you in good stead as you face baseless accusations. And when a man faces accusations and no evidence is put before him, I don't think he's got nothing to worry about. Thank you very much for your extraordinary service to the people of the United States.
Would the gentlelady yield?
Be happy to yield.
I appreciate it. I just would wonder if that quote from March, we can find Lois Lerner's emails, would the commissioner stand behind that statement, or would he have to qualify it with, we will find some of Lois Lerner's emails?
Well, I'm sure he was trying to find all of Lois Lerner's emails. And they were lost before the crash occurred, before we even began.
But not after Mr. Camp had sent letters, not after we had begun our investigation. Her crash came after we began investigating.
And therefore what, Mr. Chairman?
And therefore
She did what?
And therefore documents disappeared after.
And therefore she did what, or Mr. Costigan did what?
I didn't say Mr. Costigan.
Well, that's what we're here to learn, and I repeat, there's no evidence that this man had anything to do with any malfeasance, or that he should be accused of perjury before this committee.
Only that he said that he was aware that Lerner's emails were overlooked, missing, or had other technical issues.
There was no evidence at that time to know whether they had been overlooked, missing, or had other issues. I did not say that we knew that. I said at that time we had no idea whether any of those applied. That's why they were investigating. That's what I was told then in April when they came back with the findings as they had reviewed it all. I never said at the time that in fact we had any idea whether any of that was true.
And Eleanor, that's the inconsistency that we're talking about here tonight.
What's the inconsistency, Mr. Chairman?
If you know that you have a difference in the numbers, and
What numbers? We don't know the numbers yet, Mr. Chairman.
The commissioner knew that there was a problem, but she didn't know the details. We were never told there was a problem.
So he should talk before he knows the details.
When every person up on the dais, including the ranking member, wants to know if you're going to get all, and you know there's at least some sort of a problem or concern.
Mr. Koskinen, what is your response to that? You said we're going to find them all.
Response to that.
Were you lying when you said we're going to find them all?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. Gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Tierney.
Thank you. Mr. Koskinen, good evening, and thank you for being here tonight. I don't think I've seen a display of this kind of disrespect in all the time I've been here in Congress, and it's unfortunate that anybody would have to be subjected to it. This is an incredible thing, a public servant being...
Would the gentleman yield?
No, I will not yield.
Okay, the gentleman will suspend. Is the gentleman...
No, I won't suspend either. I'm
Is
in the
the
middle of my
gentleman
time, and I will continue to ask questions.
The gentleman
Because it's
will
my
suspend.
time. I won't suspend.
Please stop the clock. The time is suspended. I would caution all members not to characterize the intent or the character of your fellow members here on the dais.
But it's, yeah, I was going to say, but it's fair game to question the integrity of the witness?
With all due respect, the rules of the House the rules of the House speak to questioning the integrity of members. I would caution all of us that, well, the chair has questioned the testimony earlier as whether it was the truth or the whole truth, that in fact to question the motives of the witness should be done only on evidence, but to question the motives of your fellow member is in fact within the rules of the House, an action for which the floor can take down words.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, of course.
thank you. You talk about the rules of the committee and
The gentleman will state his parliamentary inquiry.
Use your mic.
Has-
Use your mic.
Has the chairman violated the rules of the committee?
Please
The rules
state
of
your
the House?
point of parliamentary inquiry.
The chairman cut off.
The gentleman will state a point of parliamentary.
Has the chairman violated his own rules in the
That's a question.
process
Do you
conducted-
have a question of approval?
May I ask the question?
He'll
Mr.
state
Chairman?
it as a point of
Yeah,
order.
just let him ask the question, please.
I will not. State a point of inquiry. If not, we will go on. The gentleman may continue.
You know, I think the understanding here is the rules of the House say that members should conduct themselves in a way that reflects credibility upon the House. I think people watching this hearing today can decide whether or not that's been followed on that. Look, I think what you're trying to tell people at one point is it's the Inspector General's responsibility to review this matter and file a report, and in that report make recommendations as to what action might be done, or upon reviewing that report, you or others might make recommendations of what might be done, such as refer to another body like the FBI or somebody else. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we're not even to that point yet.
That's correct.
I guess, as opposed to shoot and then aim, we might be trying to first gather some information and decide where we go from there.
Correct.
Have you testified tonight to anything that was not discussed at last Friday's hearing?
Sorry, you know what?
Have you discussed tonight with this committee any matter pertinent to this subject that was not discussed last Friday?
Thus far, no.
So just to get it right, you were scheduled to testify originally in front of Chairman Camp's committee tomorrow on the 24th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Had they been in touch with you or your staff before scheduling that date?
Yes, they actually had asked whether I would be available in the morning on Tuesday, and I was not, and we agreed that I would testify in the afternoon.
So you agreed to testify voluntarily?
I've always agreed to testify voluntarily over the course of the last 20 years.
So after you discussed and agreed to testify before Chairman Camp, you received a unilateral subpoena from Chairman Iser, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that subpoena asked you to come here, in fact, it compelled you to come here tonight.
Correct.
Did Mr. Iser ever call you and ask you to come voluntarily?
No.
Did any of his staff ever call you and ask you to come voluntarily?
No.
Did he ever explain to you why it was so urgent that you come here at 7 o'clock on Monday night when you were already scheduled to appear voluntarily before a different committee of jurisdiction on Tuesday the 24th following day?
No.
Now, I won't ask you to speculate, but I think some might speculate that either you don't think that Mr. Camp could do the job, which I would sort of think is a suspect. He's been known to be a pretty good member. Or that there's some sort of competition going on here. I don't know. Some might speculate that. But when Chairman Camp heard that Chairman Iser had subpoenaed you for tonight, you were all of a sudden notified that there was going to be a hearing in Chairman Camp's committee on Friday of last week. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How were you notified of that?
The staff asked if I would be available on Friday. They had to get the approval agreement of the minority, since I understand there's a 7-day rule. I told them that I could make myself available on Friday.
Now, how long did you testify on Friday?
Total length of the hearing was 4.5 hours with a recess for about 45 minutes in the middle.
I would think that having testified all that time on the subject matter, that tonight's hearing might be somewhat redundant on that, and so far it has been. Is that correct?
It has similarities to Friday.
And I in looking on this, I think the only thing that might be different in the sequence of what's going on is now I understand that Chairman Iser has invited Ms. Jennifer O'Connor to testify tomorrow. Do you know Ms. O'Connor?
I do not.
Do you know whether or not she worked at the IRS from May to November of 2013?
I do understand she did.
Now, she left in November of last year, is that right?
That's my understanding.
And that would have been well before there was any discovery of Ms. Lerner's emails gone missing, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you know where Ms. O'Connor works now?
My understanding is she works at the White House.
So I think some would speculate that maybe the people in this committee think that now trumped Mr. Camp on his committee, and maybe that gets some cameras in the action here, but nobody would want to speculate like that. Again, I'll just end my questioning here by saying that I think it's unfortunate that you had to be subjected to this after having gone through it last Friday, and I hope that members will reflect the credibility of the House from here on in, at least, if it hasn't been done so far. Thank you.
Go to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch. Sorry, yeah, Mr. Stephen Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do want to raise the issue that while the IRS is not held in very high repute these days, neither is the United States Congress. And I want to thank you for your willingness to testify. I would like to refocus on the evidence here. You know, I'm a little bit surprised at the chronology that Mr. Tierney has laid out here, where you were originally invited by Mr. Camp and the Ways and Means Committee to testify, and then it seems like when Mr. Iser found out about that, and you were unilaterally subpoenaed here to testify before you were going to testify tomorrow at that other hearing, and then Mr. Camp jumps in front of him, and now I have billboards, and I had a video clipped up there earlier. Great showmanship, and I'm just worried I'll come in here tomorrow, there'll be a 16-piece orchestra to sort of cap out the show. That's not the way this is supposed to happen. That's not the way this is supposed to go down. I mean, I think there's some serious issues here that we have to get to, but all of this fanfare, all of this showmanship is clouding it over. I think we're doing a disservice to the people that we represent. And I think we are failing greatly in meeting the high expectations of the American people. I think that's probably an understatement. I would like to focus on the evidence. And going back to the heart of this issue, we did have a situation where there was evidence and admission on the part of the IRS that they were using search terms such as Tea Party, Patriots, 9/12 Project, in terms of be on the lookout for groups that were applying with those characteristics. They also were looking for any issues in an application that included government spending or government debt or taxes. They're also looking for statements in the case file criticizing how the country was run. That's evidence. When the IRS goes after citizens of the United States because of this criteria, that is evidence of their state of mind. That is relevant evidence. Now, that's not all they look for. They also look for any search terms regarding progressives or these emerge groups, which were also very progressive groups, 501c applications. They also went after any successor organizations to ACORN because they were highly progressive. So there was a widespread. It's not just going after conservative groups, but it's going after American citizens who have various political views, and that is evidence. That's hard evidence. Would you agree?
Is there evidence that exactly?
Right. Okay. So when these emails go missing for 27 months on Lois Lerner's account, you realize how that just feeds into the suspicion that there's something going on here.
I understand that. Well, I think it's important to understand we were able to find 24,000 emails in that period.
I know what you found. I appreciate that, and I think you went at it legitimately and honestly. Let me ask you, when Mr. Russell, the IG for the IRS, when he looked at it, he was looking at the search term issue for us. Did he look at the other issue of the missing emails? Did he do any of that, or was that known to him?
It was not known to anyone at that time.
Okay, so we didn't look at that.
Pardon?
We didn't look at that.
The IG, to my understanding, did not look at that. He has started an investigation of that now.
Okay. Well, I think that's something we might want to revisit then. And do you think that it would be worthwhile to have the Inspector General go back and look at the way these emails went missing? And I also know that there's some allegations, unfounded allegations, about 6 other employees about their emails going missing.
No, he should look at it, and he is looking at it. I expect that when they complete that investigation, they'll provide a report to the public, us, and this committee, and other investigators.
Okay. My time has expired. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman just said it was unfounded. Are there other drives that led to other emails not being available to your knowledge?
At this point, there aren't. We noted last week, I had asked, as I said in my testimony in May, as we were finally giving the arms around Lois Lerner, I said, could we look at the other 82 custodians and determine whether there are other hard drives that would affect this? As I noted, we now have found several custodians. It's not clear what emails, if any, were lost. Again, that was part of what we had hoped to complete in our full review of all of this, at which point we would have provided you with that information.
Okay, so we don't know today about others. There may be others because there were other crashes.
There may be others, yes. We have provided information, what we know. We just learned about that last Monday.
Just a follow-up on that?
Of course.
I'm trying to remember her name, Nicole
Flax.
Flax. There was a story last week that her emails were missing. Have we made any progress on trying to figure out her emails?
I think that was cleared up, that it was just one of her 2 computers. That there weren't.
So are her emails missing?
There's no evidence now any email is missing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I now ask unanimous consent that the 141-page staff report from April 7, 2014 be placed in the record. Without objection, so ordered. The title of it is Debunking the Myth that the IRS Targeted Progressives. Remember the name of the people who told you that?
When I was told or by whom, I just know it was in that time frame.
Okay, I don't remember as an answer. We now go to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd ask unanimous consent that an article dated July 4th, 2013 by Jonathan Weissman in the New York Times, taking direct issue with your staff report that you entered into the record with unanimous consent, be entered in the record at this time.
Would the gentleman state the date of that article, please?
Yes, July 4th, 2013.
So somebody disputes my April 7, 2014 with a July 2013 article?
Mr. Chairman, he kind of lays out a pretty good case, but I think it should be in the record just like your staff.
I certainly think that it's fine for somebody to determine almost a year ahead of a report that the report is invalid. Without objection, so ordered.
I thank the chair for his courtesy. Mr. Koskinen, from your testimony, the IRS does not permit all of its 90,000 employees to store all of their email in their active inboxes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Why is that?
We do not have the server capacity to absorb all of those emails.
Why don't you have the server capacity to absorb all those emails?
Because of the expense.
What would be the cost of expanding that
The
capacity?
estimate made when the IRS considered expanding its system would cost somewhere between $10 and $30 million. That was an estimate 2 years ago.
Okay. IRS employees instead move their emails when they want to store into archive files on their hard drives. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would one alternative be the cloud?
There's no way out of the emails on the IRS go into the cloud at this time.
Why?
Because we're very sensitive to security of taxpayer information, and so thus far the IRS has not moved any information to the cloud, although my understanding is that the IT department continues to look at that issue.
Hard drives crash, especially in older computers. Industry experts say that businesses should replace their employees' computers every 3 to 4 years. Is that correct?
That's the general industry standard.
And how often does the IRS meet that standard?
We refresh them over time. Sometimes it takes as long as 5 to 7 years.
So could that part of the problem be we're dealing with an aging set of PCs in IRS because we haven't invested in new equipment?
There's no doubt about that. As I noted on Friday, we had thousands of employees still running Windows XP. We're trying to move on to Windows 7. Windows XP is no longer supported by Microsoft.
Well, surely this concern we have up here with hard drives crashing and emails not being properly archived or stored and all kinds of other problems, and given precisely the sensitivity of the data that the IRS possesses, surely the Congress has provided an investment portfolio, a set of resources for you to quickly update your computer technology, your information technology in the IRS. Is that correct?
We are provided significant amounts of money, but significantly less than we need.
Has your budget gone up or down in the last four?
Budget has gone down regularly every 4 years.
How much has your budget declined?
Budget has declined over the last 4 years, $850 million, as the number of taxpayers has gone up by 7 million, and we've been asked to implement the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act and the Affordable Care Act.
Your budget's gone down $800 million in real dollars?
Yes.
Nominal dollars, not including index for inflation.
That's right. That's the actual dollar number.
Huh. That's amazing, given our concern that we wouldn't be providing you with resources to try to turn this around and make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again.
The House mark for this year's upcoming fiscal year 15 cuts us by another $350 million.
$350 million in one fiscal year?
Yes.
Well, surely that will change in light of our deep and profound concern for what happened to Lois Lerner's hard drive.
We have high hopes.
Well, surely you've been called to these midnight sessions to try to see what help you need, right? You've been asked. Have you been subpoenaed or voluntarily requested before any committee of the House of Representatives to testify as to what your needs are and what a $350 million cut on top of an $800 million cut over the last 4 years might do to your agency?
I've testified before the House Appropriations Subcommittee, and we have provided updated information to the House and the Senate appropriators about the negative impact of a $350 million cut.
And their heart bled for you, undoubtedly. Thank you, Mr. Koskinen.
For the record, Ways and Means Committee referred 4 criminal charges to justice against Lois Lerner months ago. Spear.
Mr. Chairman, I implore you to enforce the rules of this committee. Rule 11, K4, asks that you control this committee, that we operate with decorum and professionalism and order. Badgering witnesses is inappropriate and shameful for this committee to conduct itself in that manner. And I would implore you in the future to rely more heavily on this rule. I would now like to ask unanimous consent.
Is the gentlelady making a motion?
No, at this point, I just want us to get back to basics and to run this committee as it should be run, with respect and decorum, and badgering this commissioner, as virtually every member on the Republican side has done, is shameful. And it's got to stop. Or else I'm telling you, one member here is going to walk out and not return.
Mr. Chairman? It's the gentlelady's time.
And I'm not yielding.
Would the gentlelady yield?
No, the gentlelady is not yielding.
Gentlelady, please yield.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said, would the gentlelady please yield?
That was better, but
Thank
no.
I got you a lot. Good.
Mr. Chairman, I would like unanimous consent to put into the record the Democratic staff report of May 6th, 2014. No evidence of White House involvement or political motivation in IRS screening of tax-exempt applicants.
Absolutely, without objection, so ordered.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Koskinen, Why you are serving our country at this point in time is beyond me. But thank you on behalf of all of us, because you are a sterling example of what we do need in this country, in government, and that is someone who knows exactly what they're doing, is not going to be bullied, and is going to state the facts as they see them. Now, let us start from the very beginning in this timeline. Based on the emails we have obtained, Ms. Lerner's hard drive crashed on June 13th, 2011. Is that not so?
Yes.
All right, June 13th, 2011. Her first indication, the first time she was informed by IRS employees in Cincinnati that they were using inappropriate search terms, did not happen until after her computer crashed. Is that not true?
That's correct.
And what date was that?
That's a week or two or thereafter.
It was June 29th, 2011. So June 13th, it crashes. June 29th, she is informed that they may be using inappropriate search terms. And the congressional investigation and the Inspector General's audit also did not start until after the computer crashed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I just want to make sure I have this clear.
Emails indicated the organizations needed to be pulled because the IRS employees were not sure how to process them, not because they wanted to stall or hinder the application. There was no indication that pulling these selected emails, these selected applications, were politically motivated. I repeat, there was no indication that pulling these selected applications were politically motivated. I ask that this be inserted in the record.
Without objection.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Would the gentleman yield for a moment?
Yes.
I want to emphasize that this committee's investigation is not complete. And the purpose of all of this inquiry with the commissioner today is to get his assurances that he will provide the documents that we've requested to complete this investigation, and then we'll come up with conclusions. I think it's in the interest of every member of this committee, regardless of their party affiliation, to get to the bottom of this based on the facts.
All right, so, look, just ask him, will you supply the information? Don't veer off in trying to revive a position that has not been supported one iota. One iota. And it's clear you're trying to keep this issue alive for political purposes. This statement from the deputy says there was no political motivation, and there never has been a scintilla of evidence. And so now the commissioner comes here, a new commissioner, when we should try to get off on the right foot, on a constructive foot. And what happens? You confront him with emails. He wasn't involved. And emails that tried to resurrect an issue that is not supported, Mr. Chairman. If you want to have a constructive, cooperative, bipartisan effort, do so. But don't use this hearing as an effort to essentially pursue a political purpose. So I ask you, and I'll finish, to the director, are you willing to cooperate fully with this committee?
I am, and I look forward, as I said earlier, to that cooperation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Welcome. Let me start by saying I understand the suspicions of the majority upon hearing 2 years' worth of emails just disappeared. Put the shoe on the other foot. When Democrats were investigating the lies and the incompetence of the Bush administration, we would be in disbelief at this ineptitude as well. As we were, for example, when we learned that the Bush White House admitted that it lost nearly 5 million emails between March 2003 and October 2005 related to the allegations of the politically motivated dismissal of then U.S. attorneys. Fortunately, we can put suspicious minds at ease today. The Inspector General for the IRS, a man named J. Russell George, who was a Republican political appointee of President George W. Bush, has already testified that Ms. Lerner did not learn about the inappropriate criteria being used in local Cincinnati IRS office until a meeting of June 29th, 2011, at least 16 days after Ms. Lerner's hard drive crashed. Yes, her computer crashed more than 2 weeks before she was notified about the inappropriate actions happening in Cincinnati. Now, like those who continue to refuse to believe that the birth certificate from the state of Hawaii is actually real, a conspiracy theorist will continue to rattle sabers, but really, does anyone in this room want to be seen in that light? Commissioner, as I mentioned, welcome. Today, the IRS has provided over 770,000 pages of documents involved in this investigation. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
And included in those thousands of pages of emails, PowerPoint presentations, and notes delivered to Congress over 9 months ago, wasn't there information that specifically mentions the crash of Ms. Lerner's computer?
Yes, over time, starting in the fall and through the spring, the emails from Lois about her failure, her computer failure, and the emails about the attempts to restore it have all been provided to this committee.
So the crash of Ms. Lerner's computer should come as no surprise. Well, no surprise if the majority were actually reading the documents that the IRS was sending up. You may not want to answer that question. Do you think American taxpayers would be upset to know that this phony investigation has already cost them over $16 million and counting, when the Republicans aren't even doing the basic due diligence of reading the documents that you are providing and sending to Congress? I wouldn't necessarily want you to answer that question either.
Not answer that.
Commissioner, or could it be that the majority, in their zeal for an Academy Award for the best outrage in a fake drama, are more upset that they were caught not actually reading the documents the IRS had sent up here, thereby proving that they are more concerned with the show trial than actually finding answers? And once again, I'm not going to ask you to answer that question. The Democrats in this committee have been outraged, as has been said over and over again, from the first day we heard about Ms. Lerner's apology to a tax conference. We are angered by any singling out of any tax-exempt application based on ideology, whether it be for progressive groups or Tea Party extremists. And contrary to what Mr. Ryan said, progressive groups were targeted as well. That's a false statement that he made. We led the charge for her to be fired. We have agreed to oversight hearings with a determined zeal to find answers. And for that reason, Mr. Chairman, in an effort to get to the truth, the next hearing on this matter should be with the Inspector General of the IRS, who has not been before this committee for over a year. Anything else would show that this committee is not using its time and resources seriously. With that, I thank the Commissioner for being here today, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. The committee stands in recess until shortly after votes are concluded.
Bill, give us a